Welcome to another edition of the Cover 2 podcast. I'm Nick Nenad.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And we had a fun weekend of football, maybe not as fun for Jared. And we'll start with that. Unfortunately, the Dallas Cowboys, Jared's team, fell to Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers this weekend. Jared, I'll let you take the reins on this one to start. But I know you have a lot to say about it. I know you have a lot to say about the bad man himself, Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, where do I begin? First off, I was unfortunately not able to even watch the first half of the game for the most part. I was driving home from Pomona, which is about 30-40 minutes away from my house. So, unfortunately, I pretty much had to listen to the radio broadcast of Aaron Rodgers just picking apart the Cowboys' defense. I knew, obviously, that Aaron Rodgers was coming into this game very hot, and I had a feeling that, he would put up a touchdown, maybe two in the first half. But from just listening, the way that he was able to pick apart the Cowboys' secondary with basically no type of pass rush from the Cowboys' front four, I at one point it was 21-3, and I'm driving home saying, I don't even want to go home right now. I don't even want to turn this game on. It seemed like it was over before it even began. The Packers completely had the momentum coming off of their wild card win against the Giants, while the Cowboys essentially had 2 weeks off. They had the bye week because they were the number one seed in the NFC. And then their last game of the regular season, they pretty much sat the majority of their starters against the Eagles because the game was meaningless. But to get into this actual game, I really want to start with where was the Cowboys' defense in the first half. They pretty much just rushed Aaron Rodgers with their front four and decided to play coverage. Newsflash, Aaron Rodgers is going to pick apart your secondary if you don't get a rush on him. Now, he is one of the best quarterbacks at getting the ball out very quickly. It is very tough in general to get pressure on Rodgers. But the Cowboys aren't sitting here with, Julius Peppers and Jason Pierre-Paul and some of the better rush ends in the league. The Cowboys at best have an average front four. So how do you counter that? You have to bring different blitzes and different packages that hopefully the Packers haven't seen. And in the first half, Rob Marinelli, the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, pretty much just sat back and let Rodgers do his thing.
Yeah, and when you saw it with the first half of the game, I watched the game on TV. I was able to see the whole game, and it looked like the Packers were going to run away with the game. It looked like Aaron Rodgers was on. It looked like he was going to do no wrong in the game. The Cowboys ended up, I believe it was like 21-10 at halftime or something. 21-13. So they did make it good on that. I remember, I think the Packers started with the ball in the second half too. So it was good on the Cowboys to come back in that game. But no, you're right. It's a bad defensive strategy to start the game. It hurt them. I personally don't think it ended up hurting them in the end of the game. Like we were talking off the air. I was saying that I think the Cowboys, for this game, ran out of time instead of really lost to the Packers. I think they easily could have won that game. I think they could have scored the touchdown if they would have got the ball back with, let's say, 30 or 40 more seconds. So I'm excited to see the Packers play the Falcons, but I feel like there's just this thing in the kind of the back of my head where it's like, well, maybe the Cowboys were the better team, but again, you mentioned that defensive strategy in the beginning of the game. Maybe that did hurt them. Do you think that ended up screwing them over for the rest of the game?
I believe that in the second half, they definitely made adjustments and they were bringing more blitzes, whether that was from the slot corner or just kind of linebacker blitzes. So they definitely made adjustments. It did hurt them, though, because they dug themselves such a big hole. If they would have, and another thing I want to bring up was the penalties. The amount of penalties that the Cowboys had in the first half. The Cowboys in the first quarter, from when I was listening, they were able to move the ball against this Packers defense. It wasn't like the Cowboys offense was just, non-existent. They were able to move the ball, but then they would get hindered by penalties that would force them to kick field goals instead of touchdowns. And you can't do that against an Aaron Rodgers-led team when Rodgers is playing like that.
And that's uncharacteristic uncharacteristic too by the Cowboys to do that too. It's guys like Zach Martin.
Yes.
He's a Pro Bowl lineman. I remember it was it Bryce Butler that ran
Bryce,
into the huddle.
He did, which by the way, and I'm only saying this because I'm a Cowboys fan. I don't remember ever hearing that
I've never
get
seen
penalized.
That call. No, I've never seen that call in my life.
I'm trying to figure out why the referees called that. I mean, I'm 26. I've been watching football for at least 10 years, and I don't really ever remember hearing that call. So that was very interesting, and that ended up being, I believe it was like a 33-yard penalty that pretty much knocked the Cowboys.
It knocked them out of field goal
position, so they ended up having to punt.
Yeah, and then you look at the game, and they lost by field goal.
Yes.
But we can go back to that too. It was the right call for what they said the call was. But they did say that he went into the huddle, and they showed the replay, and he never went into the huddle. He just kind of ran over and stood there, was looking at the sidelines the entire time, and then ran off. It's almost like the refs were looking to make that call or something like that. But nonetheless, I don't think that affected him too much at all as far as the whole rest of the game. But I want to move it to Rodgers and what you thought about his performance in the game.
He was masterful.
It was ridiculous.
He was Aaron Rodgers. I mean, listen, I don't care if you are Deion Sanders, Richard Sherman, Darrelle Revis a couple years ago when Darrelle Revis was Darrelle Revis.
But he's not Darrelle Revis.
No, he's not.
He's just Revis.
Yeah, that's a whole different topic.
He's a half of himself.
Yes, he's a half of an
Revis
island.
now.
Yes, but where I was getting at was that I don't care who you are, you cannot cover a receiver for 6 to 7 seconds when Aaron Rodgers is throwing the ball.
Every single play, too.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's every single play.
Yes. So the Packers came in with a great game plan, and they executed it in the first half to perfection. Now, in the second half, the Cowboys, like I mentioned, made some adjustments, brought some more blitzes and some different looks that the Packers hadn't seen. Aaron Rodgers did throw one interception to Jeff Heath, where he made a phenomenal play. And there was actually a second interception by Jeff Heath, but that got negated because of a pass interference call on the Cowboys' rookie corner, Anthony Brown, when he held Devontae Adams, who kind of did a little double move on him. So going back to the penalties, again, that really hurt them. But really, Aaron Rodgers was just completely in control. He threw for 355 yards, had 2 touchdowns, that one interception. But other than that interception, he was really masterful. I do have to give credit to the Cowboys because they did not give up in this game.
No, not at all.
They could have easily said, listen, we're down 21-3. We're playing Aaron Rodgers, who's just hot right now. I don't know how we're going to come back. But they did. They fought back at the end of the first half, getting that touchdown and that field goal to make it from an 18-point game to an 8-point game. The beginning of the third quarter was really telling. The Cowboys had a little bit more momentum going in. The Packers got the ball to start the third quarter, and the Packers ended up driving down, and it was a 6-play, 75-yard drive. I believe it took like 3.5 minutes off the clock and ended with a Jared Cook touchdown in the back of the end zone.
Yeah.
That was pretty telling because that showed that, hey, the Packers are not going to ease up in this game at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Fortunately for the Cowboys, Dak came back and led an 11-play, 80-yard touchdown drive with a pass to Dez Bryant, and then Dak converted a 2-point conversion, which tied the game at 28. That's when it really became a game, and that's when all of the not controversy, but that's when the game really started.
Well, I think if you look back in the first, I'll move back to that first half where the Packers were up 21-3, and I was urging this the whole game. Who would you say the best player on the offense is? For the Cowboys.
I mean,
I personally would say it's Ezekiel Elliott, right?
Yes. In that particular game, I will say Dez Bryant played one of his best games of his career.
Dez Bryant was fantastic. They passed to him more, and he did. Yeah, exactly. I think it was one of the best games. It seemed like he was on. He was going to catch every ball. But what I thought the Cowboys did is I think they overreacted to falling so fast where they didn't give the ball to Zeke enough. When you saw later in the game, they started giving the ball to Zeke, and they'd gain 7 or 8 yards, and then they'd do a play action, and Dez Bryant would be wide open, or Cole Beasley would be wide open. They finally went back to that Cowboys offense Do you think that they got scared that they had to pass too much because they went down by so much, so they just stopped giving the ball to Zeke? And I think maybe that would have got him an extra touchdown if they would have facilitated the offense. You saw at the end of the game the defense for the Packers was getting tired. I remember I even tweeted, I said, if the Packers don't score on this drive, the game's over. The Cowboys are going to win because their defense is done. Do you think that they should have given the ball to Zeke a little more in this game?
I do only on certain occasions. Zeke had 22 carries for 125 yards, so it's not like he only got the ball 10 times.
No.
And Prescott only threw the ball 38 times, so there were a few occasions, I'm sorry, and it was more of a few plays where I believe there was a 3rd and 1 or a 3rd and 2 where the Cowboys, and I believe this was in the first half, to where instead of running the ball and they were in field goal position, they elected to throw, and Dak Prescott threw an incompletion, and then they had to settle for a field goal. The other one that I want to mention was in the second half, and I believe it was the third quarter. It was a 2nd down and less than 4. I believe 2nd down and 3, and it was the interception. Listen, I understand that it's second down, second and short. Everyone in the world thinks you're going to run the ball, so you're trying to fake out the Packers defense. But on that specific play, it was supposed to be almost like a screen for Cole Beasley. Des Bryant was lined up in front of Cole Beasley, just pretty much side by side. And Des Bryant was supposed to block the corner that's right in front of him.
He didn't block him at all.
Well, Micah Hyde read the play, and he actually came out after the game and said, we knew that play was going to happen from our film study. Micah Hyde beats Des Bryant off the line, and Cole Beasley can't even get 2 steps in. Micah Hyde's already right in front of it for an interception. So on that particular play, like I said, it was 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3. I think you run it with Zeke right there, and then you either pick up a first down or you're at least going to get 3rd and 1, 3rd and inches.
Well, another reason I was urging the Cowboys to try to have them run in this game is because Dak wasn't himself in the first half.
No,
he made a couple passes that were nowhere near receivers. Even the screen pass, if you go back and look at it, that ball was going straight into the ground. Now he may have reacted to Micah Hyde jumping in front of it, but it still looked like, okay, this is not the time to pass. This is where you feed your star running back. It's not like they're having, not to knock Ty Montgomery, but it's not like they have Ty Montgomery and James Starks in the backfield. They have one, in my opinion, top 3 running back in the NFL in the backfield. Give him the ball.
Yes.
And those 2 plays you mentioned were the exact 2 plays I was talking about too, where you needed to give Zeke the ball more. I think that was another factor in the Cowboys losing, is maybe overreacting to falling behind so early. But yeah, no, I think definitely if they would have given Zeke the ball a little more, it would have tired out that Green Bay defense and maybe would have got them the last possession instead of Green Bay.
Yeah. Just the last quick point that I want to make on this game, because we do have to move on.
Yes.
I wish the Cowboys would have went a little more up-tempo. The Packers were literally in their secondary down to their 3rd and 4th and 5th string guys.
Yeah, no, exactly.
They're starting strong safety, I forget his first name, Burnett, number 42. Yep, he went out in the first half.
You're right, because he got hit in the stomach or hit in the chest or something.
Yeah, and he did not come back in the game. So for if I'm a Cowboys coach, especially offensively, how do you not want to go up tempo more? You're going up against the 3rd and 4th string secondary, and you're picking them apart all game. I feel that Aaron Rodgers was able to do that. He was able to recognize the Cowboys defense and say, "Hey guys, you know what? We're gonna hit him hard right now. Let's go up tempo." And then maybe pull back, and then go up tempo again. I feel like if the Cowboys could have done that, they maybe could have gotten extra possession out of the game, maybe another field goal. Who knows? Obviously, this is Monday morning or Wednesday morning quarterbacking, but it was a great game. Like I mentioned, I said this before the game. I said it was going to be 35-32 Cowboys, and my prediction was the team who had the ball at the end was going to win.
Which is essentially, exactly.
And unfortunately, that's what happened. Aaron Rodgers made that fantastic sideline throw to Jared Cook where he got his 2 feet in. And that was, and then Mason Crosby coming up clutch. The first field goal, I think, was just ridiculous. The 56-yarder.
It looked like he had no chance to go. I remember I was watching Skip Bayless the next day, and he said a couple wild things about the Cowboys, which I'm not going to get into. But he said that, and he was right, it looked like that field goal should not have moved the way it should have, and it went at a weird angle toward the right side of the goalpost, and it just moved back in and just snuck into that corner.
Yeah, it was like a knuckleball. I mean,
Yeah,
like
the whole game was
starts
weird at the
left,
end.
goes right, and literally, I mean, he actually would have made it from like 60 plus because
Yeah.
they had a lot of distance,
He kicked the
but
hell
it
out of the
it
ball,
just
yeah.
barely squeaked through. And then the game winning field goal that looked like it was going to hook left, and at the very last second, it hooks back in. I mean, you have to give all the credit to Mason Crosby. Obviously, Dan Bailey had that 52-yard field goal to tie the game at the end. So a fantastic game. Unfortunately, my boys came up short. But you know what? The future looks very bright with them when you have
Definitely.
Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, Des Bryant. That offensive line is still intact for the most part. Really, in the offseason and in the draft, if they can just focus on their defense, get some more pass rushers, a little more depth in that secondary, I think this Cowboy team is going to be almost like Seattle in a sense, to where, their quarterback, they're not paying Dak a lot of money.
And they won't pay him for a long time.
No,
too.
so they'll be able to, once Tony Romo comes off the books, whether that's this year or next year, they'll be able to use a lot of that money to build and get better players around them. So I think they have a nice window here to be championship contenders. So
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So, and moving on, we'll move to the other NFC game. Won't talk too much about this one because it wasn't much of a contest most of the game. The score was a little closer than it should have been. Atlanta destroyed the Seahawks, and I know we actually predicted they would win, and they would win by a lot, but it just seemed like Atlanta was clearly the better team. Their offense is firing on all cylinders. Although Julio Jones did get hurt at the end of the game, they've come out and said that he's not injured. He's going to play next game. He's good. What was your takeaway of that game and just Atlanta's dominance of Seattle?
It's all about Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
He is reclaiming the Matty Ice term that a lot of people were giving him in his first few years in the league. And, the last 2 to 3 years, Matt Ryan has been pretty average for considering himself an elite quarterback in the NFL. Well, last year and this year, he has been nothing but spectacular. You can call him, I would say he's easily a top 5 quarterback in the league
easy.
this year.
Yeah.
Other than Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, I would probably choose Matt Ryan next. He was just absolutely phenomenal. Even though the Seattle defense maybe isn't what it used to be in years past, obviously they lost Earl Thomas, but they've still got Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Michael Bennett. They've still got some players. And Matt Ryan just lit him up. He had 338 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Obviously, the duo of Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman in the backfield has obviously worked for the Falcons all year. So they've had that consistent balance of run and pass, to where I believe in years past, Matt Ryan was relied on too much to throw the ball.
Yeah.
So I feel like they've had a good balance. Obviously, you got Julio Jones, top 2, maybe the best receiver in the NFL.
And he was ridiculous until he got hurt, too.
Yes, until
he
he got hurt.
was torching Richard Sherman,
Yeah.
which you don't see a lot.
I believe what the coach said after the game was that if need be, Julio Jones could have came back into the game, but because Atlanta had a pretty good stranglehold on the contest, they didn't need to bring him back.
And the final score was 36-20, but to be fair, Seattle threw a long bomb at the end of the game when the Atlanta defense, it seemed like, wasn't too much into the game. So really, Atlanta was up by 3 touchdowns, and they gave up some weak touchdown at the end of the game when it didn't matter much. But no, yeah, you're right. So there was no reason to bring Julio back in. They were up by 3 touchdowns. Let's not be like Mike Tomlin and Big Ben at the end of that Miami game and keep him in there and maybe risk him getting injured a little more.
No, not at all. Not at all. They're clicking on all cylinders. Even this defense is coming up a little bit there. They've kind of taken that model of the Seattle's defense to where they don't blitz a lot. They play their responsibilities. Vic Beasley's come on this year. He led the league in sacks after almost being a bust last year as a rookie. So he's really come on. This defense is starting to play a little bit better. I think looking forward, this Green Bay Packer Atlanta Falcons matchup is going to be insane. Obviously, I would have loved to have my Cowboys in there, but the fact of seeing Aaron Rodgers going up against Matt Ryan, I can see them both throwing for 350, 400 yards.
Oh, easy.
It's going to be a shootout.
Yeah, I cannot wait for the game. I was personally hoping for once Atlanta won, I was hoping it would be Green Bay and Atlanta because of just the amount of scoring that's going to happen. The quarterback, the two quarterbacks. Obviously, I think they were the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFC this season. I think they get to face off. I personally think Atlanta is better than people think. A lot of people get to see them, so it will be interesting to see for the second straight week. The Georgia Dome does get one more game this season. The Georgia Dome is closing. I don't know if they're closing after the Atlanta season ends, but no matter what, after this game, it will be the last game before they move into Mercedes-Benz Stadium right across the street. So the Georgia Dome will get to close out one more game in the NFC Championship, which should be fun. I want to move back real quick before we start analyzing the game itself about Matty Ice kind of returning to Matty Ice. I think it's because of the running back duo of Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. Those guys were shot out of a rocket the entire game against Seattle. They were running over people like Bobby Wagner in that game. They were breaking tackles. It seemed like when they got down to the goal line, Atlanta was going to score no matter what, every single time, because they could either pass to someone like Julio Jones or Mohamed Sanu, or they could just pound it in with Coleman or Freeman. That offense is dangerous. I wanted to get your take on the two running backs from Atlanta.
Yes, no, they are, like I said, they're a two-headed monster, and they work so well together. Devontae Freeman, I feel like he runs like a madman. He runs like every single play is his last, and he's not going to go down until 3 or 4 guys try to bring him down. He is also a speedster. I mean, he's a shorter back, and he's very stocky, so he can definitely run in between the tackles. But then when he breaks it, when he gets to that second level, he'll run past your corners and your safeties. And then when he needs a breather, you bring Tevin Coleman, you bring him into the game, and he's almost a splitting image, except now he's fresh.
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
Like it's unreal how this Atlanta rushing attack has really come alive this year. And kudos to the front office for being able to find Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman in the draft and kind of have that 1-2 punch to help Matt Ryan and to leave some of the pressure off of him. So, no, you are completely on spot with that. I definitely agree that that's one of the main reasons why they've been able to have so much success. It's freed up Julio Jones because now teams can't just automatically double him.
No,
you got to bring an extra guy in the box.
Yeah.
You're it's the same thing kind of with the Cowboys. What do you do?
Exactly.
Do you bring an extra guy in the box to stop the run, or do you double team the best receiver in the league? Either way, you're going to give up something. It just depends on what you want to do. So, I'm very, very excited for this matchup coming up. Atlanta deserves to be in this NFC Championship game. And, it's going to be fantastic. Can't wait.
Now, they also both can catch passes very well, too, which is another underrated stat. But so I'm going to do my prediction for this game. This game reminds me, or at least the matchup of the offenses reminds me as a Cardinals fan of when Kurt Warner faced the Packers. I'm not sure if Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback of the Packers yet. They faced him in the NFC Championship game, or it was a playoff game to get to that Super Bowl where they played the Steelers in 2009. Game ended up being 51-45 because of the offenses. I think it's going to be that high scoring again. I'm going to go 48-45 Atlanta. I think Atlanta wins the game. I think it's high scoring. I hope it happens because I think that game will be super entertaining. But I'm going 48-45. Atlanta wins the game. I think they have too many offensive options. And I think the lack of running game and DBs for Green Bay will hurt them in the end.
Wow. Is that like a college football score here?
That's how the game's going to be. It's ridiculous.
I do agree that is going to be high scoring. I believe it's going to be more like the Packers game last week against the Cowboys. I believe it's going to be in the 30s. I'm actually going 35-34 Atlanta. I think they're going to win by 1. I think Atlanta, same situation. They're going to have the ball at the end of the game, drive down. Matt Bryant's going to kick a field goal to send them into the Super Bowl. I think we both agree that it's going to be a fantastic game.
Oh, fantastic.
Honestly, I think we both understand that these offenses can score at will. It's going to be up to these defenses to really come up. Who's going to make that 1 or 2 big plays when they need it most? Because you know that these offenses are going to be able to rack up yards. So which defense is going to make a big play, whether it's an interception, a fumble, a sack, something? One of these defenses is going to have to make a couple big plays in this game to stop these hot offenses, or else it's just going to be a complete shootout, and really whoever has the ball last is going to win.
I see a Vic Beasley sack at the end of on Aaron Rodgers as being a big play late in the game. I'm going to call that Vic Beasley getting a sack late in the game.
I can see it. All right,
move on to the AFC. I don't think we want to talk too much about that Texans-Patriots game as much. I think we'll move on to the Patriots and Chiefs game. The Steelers and Chiefs game, where the Steelers win on all field goals, something you don't see a lot in the NFL period, especially in the playoffs. But before we start to talk about the game itself, I want to talk about after the game. Antonio Brown decided to do a Facebook Live for about, I believe, 17 minutes of the post-game talk of his teammates celebrating, which is against NFL rules. You're not allowed to use social media or at least post on social media until about 90 minutes after the game. AB decided, screw that. I'm just going to do it anyways. And now Mike Tomlin and Big Ben are angry at him. Jared, what did you think it was a good idea? Do you think this will affect them coming into their game against the Patriots?
Going into this game against the Patriots, I don't think it's going to affect them.
Mm-hmm.
I think these guys are professional enough to be able to get over this and realize, hey, listen, we're one win away from the Super Bowl. We're going up against the Patriots, who could care less what we're doing. So I think they're going to be focused and ready. Now, going back to what Antonio Brown did, completely uncalled for and just not right. From the comments of Ben Roethlisberger, he came out, I believe it was yesterday, and said, hey, listen, we don't condone that. We wish that he would have been listening to Coach Tomlin and Ben when they were speaking at the end of the game to the team. Instead, he was kind of off in the corner and doing a Facebook Live post. So I just don't understand why you would do that in that situation. I would want to be celebrating with my teammates. Yeah. And I understand you're happy. You just had a hard-fought win. You didn't score any touchdowns. It was all field goals. So, you really should have had your kicker on there, thanking him because he's the one that got you guys into this.
I think he did make an appearance at one point.
Okay. But, you know what? It's just completely uncalled for. And it's kind of bringing up some other headlines as far as, some sources coming out and saying that Antonio Brown seems to be a little bit of a guy about himself. Maybe he's not that team player. And then an interesting quote that I heard from Coach Tomlin, and correct me if I misquote this a little bit, but the gist of it was Coach Tomlin came out and said, not every star player stays with the same team for their career.
Oh,
so
that is very interesting.
Listen, you never know.
And they got guys. They got Martavis Bryant coming back next year.
Yes, potentially. He still is. He actually just applied for reinstatement. Yes, if he can stay off the weed. But so you know what? You never know. Antonio Brown is under contract for the next few years with Pittsburgh. But if he continues to have these mishaps, is that something that the Steelers and the Steelers organization wants to put up with? Or would they potentially let him go? That's obviously going to be a storyline that everyone's going to be watching in the next year or so to come. I personally don't think he's going anywhere. No. I think you deal with these types of issues and, you sit him down, you have a conversation with him, and hopefully he gets the message. But yeah, it's just very interesting because, with social media in today's world, I don't think we've seen something like that before. Obviously, players have posted videos, but not to that extent to where, Coach Tomlin is in the background, throwing cuss words all around. And you know what? It obviously happens in many locker rooms. I'm not saying that's bad or anything, but Antonio Brown should just know better. He messed up. He did come out and apologize.
Yeah, he did apologize.
Coach Tomlin said that Brown will be internally dealt with. So I'm sure whether that's a fine or, whatever the case may be, he will be dealt with. But make no mistake, he will be on the field. And the thing I will tell Antonio Brown, he needs to ball.
Yep.
He needs to come out.
Absolutely needs to ball. Don't do the Odell thing where you end up sucking and then everyone's like, oh, well, it affected him next game. Yeah.
The Steelers and especially Antonio Brown, you want this situation to go away real quick. Antonio Brown, you come out, you ball, you get 10 receptions for over 100 yards, 1 or 2 touchdowns, and the Steelers win, and no one is talking about this anymore.
Exactly.
You guys come out and lose, and Antonio Brown stinks it up like Odell Beckham Jr. did a couple weeks ago, and I guarantee you this headline is going to haunt them for the rest of the offseason.
I do. And I agree with you. I don't think it will actually affect them during the game. Because did the Joey Porter thing affect them? I don't think so. I think the reason they kicked the field goals was because it was cold as hell in Kansas City, and there was ice on the field. And, Kansas City's got one of the best defenses in the league.
Yes.
Let's not lie. So I don't think I think it's almost like, let's see after this next game, if they win, what happens again. Because it seems like the Steelers, their motto this playoffs is win, and then someone does something stupid right after the game, and then they well, we'll see. And then they win and they move on, and someone does something stupid after the game.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe we'll play a game at the end of this podcast. Is who will do something stupid for the Steelers again after the next game?
A little trivia.
Exactly. Now, so moving back to the game against Kansas City. Obviously, 6 field goals. Not much to talk about as far as scoring. What did you think about the holding call at the end of the game on Eric Fisher? Or say it was the 2-point conversion.
Yes, 2-point conversion. I think it was holding. Now, listen, like you had mentioned, that there was ice on the field, and it obviously wasn't the best conditions. And some people were saying that James Harrison slipped, and Fisher really didn't have much to do with that as far as him slipping. I, in my eyes, it looked like a holding call. It looked like he got beat off the line. Fisher, the left tackle, looked like he got beat off the line. James Harrison had a step on him. He got good leverage. He was very low. And the only way that Fisher could stop Harrison from getting to his quarterback was to grab a hold of him by the neck and throw him down. So, you know what? I can't fault the refs for making that call because I feel like it was holding call. It was very unfortunate. But you know what? That's the nature of the game.
Yeah, I'm watching actually a GIF of the hold right now, and it obviously GIFs are a little quicker in time. But it definitely looks like the thing with holding, you see this a lot with corners, is that the minute a guy grabs a guy's jersey and you see the jersey move to the right or left or straight down, the refs are going to throw the flag. Chiefs fans can complain about the call, but it was holding, and what a lot of fans are hoping is that the ref didn't see the holding, or oh, that's not that much of holding, so we're not going to call it. Harrison does slip on the play. I thought it was holding. It was enough to call the penalty, especially since Harrison had been torching Eric Fisher the entire game. I think the refs were almost looking for a holding on that play, and they caught him doing it. I thought the Chiefs, they had a lot of other opportunities in this game to score and win. Once again, it just seems like they never can just do it at the end of the games for some reason. The Chiefs can just never do it.
Listen, I think I want to make one thing very clear. That is not the reason why they lost this game.
No, not at all.
They opened the game. Their first possession, they drove down and scored a touchdown. Albert Wilson caught a pass, a 5-yard pass from Alex Smith. And then after that, they didn't score until almost the end of the third quarter where Santos kicked a field goal to make it 15-10.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they were, from the first quarter to the third quarter, they had 3 points.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there was plenty of time from the beginning of the game to the very end where that holding call occurred for the Chiefs to score. So that was not the reason they lost. Now, their defense definitely kept them in the game because if I'm the opposing team and and I say, hey, would you take the Steelers only kicking field goals? What do you think you would win? Every single time.
You should win.
And twice on Sundays.
Yeah.
So the Kansas City Chiefs can blame their offense for not putting up more points on the board. That's my opinion.
Now, real quick before we move on to the matchup, do you think the Chiefs need to move past Alex Smith? Because I've heard rumblings that there's a lot of people have been saying that Alex Smith is not going to win them a Super Bowl. Do you agree with that, or do you think they should just stick with it and just, they're barely losing these games and they should just, stick with it?
I think Andy Reid is very comfortable with Alex Smith.
Uh-huh.
Alex Smith knows Andy Reid's system. Andy Reid likes certain types of quarterbacks to be able to run his system. And Alex Smith has kind of rejuvenated himself ever since he's been with Kansas City. Now, obviously, he's not one of those guys who you would probably want with the ball in his hands, and to drive down the field and win the game.
Yeah.
But he's been a manageable, serviceable quarterback. I will say this. If whether in the drafts or in free agency, if there is a better quarterback out there, then yes, I think you go for him. But in this draft alone, I don't really see a top-tier quarterback that right now is better than Alex Smith. And in free agency, just off the top of my head, I don't see any quarterback who I think could come in and do a better job than Alex Smith. So for this offseason and for this next season coming up, I think they're going to stick with Alex Smith because there's nothing else better. Everyone always wants to say this, and it doesn't matter, what team or what player. Oh, just get rid of him. Just get rid of him. You know what I mean? People were calling for,
overreacting.
Yeah. Just like with Tony Romo before Dak Prescott became Dak Prescott, everyone was saying Tony Romo isn't going to win a championship. Void his contract. Get rid of him. Oh, okay. well, who is next in line? Who else are you going to get?
Mark Sanchez?
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like you always have to think about the end results as well. It's not just about getting rid of that specific player or that person. Who is going to come in and do a better job? And if there is no one that the Chiefs think can come in and do a better job, then you stick with Alex Smith because they've gotten him to the playoffs in the last couple of years. Andy Reid knows what he's doing. So I think the Chiefs also need more weapons around Alex Smith. It's not just Alex Smith. Get him, maybe Jamal Charles can finally be healthy for a season. Maybe you can get a number one receiver because Jeremy Maclin doesn't seem like he can stay healthy enough. No. So put some pieces around Alex Smith, and maybe he puts up some better results.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Don't get rid of Alex Smith. I say maybe draft a guy, though, behind him to where if you see that there's no future with Alex Smith, you have a guy behind him that's maybe worked, let's say, 2 years. You give Alex Smith 2 more years with the Chiefs. He works at it, they don't win the Super Bowl, and then you have a guy like, I don't want to say a Deshaun Watson, but you have someone like that, maybe a Deshaun Kaiser or someone like that, behind him waiting in the wings that could restart the team and maybe be a different face. But yeah, keep Alex Smith for sure. We've been doing the segment for a long time, so let's just do our pick for the Steelers and Patriots. Who you got in this fantastic AFC matchup?
I think this is going to be another great matchup. Both of these games are going to be fantastic. I can't wait for Sunday to come because I will be on the couch watching both. I'm going to go with the Patriots because they're at home. If this was in Pittsburgh, I would go with the Steelers. Now, I do think the Steelers have a great chance to win because they have the 3 killer bees. Mm-hmm. This has been the first postseason that Big Ben, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell have all been able to play in the same game in the playoffs. So I think it's going to be a very tough matchup, but it's very, very tough for me to go against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick unless they're playing my Cowboys. So, yes, I'm going to go with the New England Patriots to just barely edge the Steelers. I think this is going to be more of a gritty, tight
Definitely.
Defensive matchup.
Cold.
It's cold. This isn't going to be a shootout like the NFC Championship game will be. So I'm going Patriots 21-17.
I like that pick. I'm to play a little bit of devil's advocate. I'm going to go with the Steelers because I think that this game is too close to call. But I think you brought it up. You almost said it for me. Killer Bees, Le'Veon Bell specifically is going to be the kicker for the Steelers. Also, you look at the Patriots, they really haven't played anybody this season. Besides the Seahawks, that game where they played the Super Bowl matchup and the Seahawks beat them, they haven't played a lot of good teams. They played the Cardinals earlier in the season, but the Cardinals weren't as good as they were at the end of the season. So I think this is really their first super tough game of the season since the Seattle game. I think it's going to be not enough. I think the Patriots are a little overrated on defense as well. I think it will be tough for them to stop all these options for the Steelers. I think the Steelers win 24-23 by 1 point. Don't know how it will end. I just think the Steelers will win, but really it's to play devil's advocate. Very close game. I'll go with the Steelers to win. When we come back, we will have another fantastic edition of Do You Care? Here are a couple ridiculous sound bites.
35-point victory for the Warriors. Cleveland's worst loss since April 2015 when they were beaten 117-78 by the Boston Celtics.
But I don't want to get into details on what the conversation was. I'm pretty sure you guys know that we spoke. We had a conversation, and I don't want to get into the details.
Where will the Chargers play until that Inglewood Stadium is finished in 2019? Well, their temporary home will be the StubHub Center in Carson, and the Chargers had already leased space for a new headquarters and training facility in Costa Mesa.
Well, after listening to those interesting sound bites, it is now time for Do You Care?, where Nick and I will be discussing some of the most interesting topics going around in the sports world today.
Here we go.
So, Nick, I'll start with you, my man. Do you care that Adoree Jackson is declaring for the NFL draft?
No, I don't care because I expected him to. I remember when Juju Smith, there was interesting news that came out that said that possibly Juju Smith-Schuster and Adoree Jackson were going to be a package deal. So once Juju left, I expected Adoree to leave. Plus, he has really nothing else to play for because they won the Rose Bowl. It was a fantastic way to end the season if you're a USC player. The only thing I have to say about Adoree is the only reason he would have wanted to stay back is because of the fact that he's not really a lockdown corner yet. I see him more as a special teams guy in the NFL right now. I think he could work back to being a good corner, but right now I think he's going to be a really good special teams player. When I say really good, I mean like a Tyreek Hill. I mean a really good special teams guy. Whoever drafts him will get a good player. I think he'll be a steal in the draft as well. But good for him. He needs to go to the NFL and get paid for sure. Jared, do you care that 3 Oregon Ducks football players were hospitalized because of intense lifting last week?
I do not care, but I want to preference that by saying that I feel for these players, and I hope that these players get better. I feel bad that, unfortunately, they had to be hospitalized for their conditioning work and because they weren't able to finish the workouts. But when I mean that I don't care, it's that the other players and the teammates have come out to support the strength and conditioning staff and the head coach, saying that the workouts were not as strenuous as originally reported. Originally, the first report that came out said that these workouts were of military style and that these players were just running to the ground. And obviously, everyone's thinking, oh my gosh, what is this new head coach coming in and doing? But obviously, after hearing these players saying, you know what, it wasn't really that bad. Listen, these are D1 athletes. They're supposed to be trained, strenuously and very tough. That's the reason why they do what most others can't do. But on the flip side of that, there also needs to be a line drawn, to where, listen, you're not killing your players and you're not completely burning them out. So because the rest of the team has come out and supported the Oregon staff and coach, I'm going to say I don't necessarily care about the workouts because I think the workouts are fine, but I do feel bad for these 3 players. I hope these players get better and they can get back to their teams very, very quickly. Nick, do you care that the Golden State Warriors put an absolute beat down on the Cavs?
No, I do not, because it is the regular season. Everyone needs to stop caring so much about regular season games. The Cavs defeated Golden State on Christmas Day. Fantastic game. They obviously came back from a 3-1 lead, as you'll see on most social media memes. So the Warriors need to win this game. They were at home. I believe it was their first home game against the Cavs since that Game 7 where the Cavs won the championship. And I also heard something about that the Cavs might not have, or thought about before the game, not playing their big three being Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, and LeBron James. So obviously the Cavs didn't care. The Warriors cared. There was some physicality in the game. There was almost a fight. LeBron flopped. Draymond talked a lot of crap like he usually does. But other than that, it's just a regular season. We all know there's only going to be 3 teams in the NBA that really have a chance to win the championship this year. That's the Spurs, the Cavs, and the Warriors. The Cavs are going to skate through the East unless Toronto wants to step up and actually be a team. So the Cavs will be in the finals. They don't need to care about this game against the Warriors. They don't need to care about the regular season. And the Warriors, they needed to kind of prove a statement. If they don't want to say that, they're lying, because they would have lost 5 straight if they would have lost to the Cavs. They would have lost 5 straight games to the Cavs if they would have lost the other night. But no, that game didn't matter. Everyone needs to stop caring about the regular season so much. Jared, do you care that Carmelo Anthony is having issues with the Knicks again?
Absolutely not. I am getting to the point where I'm pretty tired of hearing this every single season. It's, Melo's having issues. Melo's getting paid too much. Melo isn't contributing like he should be. I agree that Melo has not been playing up to the level of his contract. I believe his contract that he signed a couple years ago, the extension to stay with the Knicks, was for around $122 million.
Ooh.
When you're getting paid that type of money, you not only need to be an offensive threat every single game, but you also need to be a team player, someone who gets the rest of your teammates involved and creates scoring opportunities for your team. I don't believe Carmelo Anthony does any of those other than score, which he is great at and phenomenal at. He can put up 30 points easily every single night. That doesn't mean his team is going to win. You look at LeBron James and James Harden, Russell Westbrook, all these guys who are superstars and, should be making, if they aren't making what Carmelo Anthony is. But guess what? they not only score, they also get their teammates involved and they make their team better, which is why they're consistent championship contenders every year for the most part. So, listen, Melo and Phil Jackson sat down yesterday, and Phil Jackson was very straight up with them and said, hey, listen, do you want to be here or not? If you do, great. You're a star, and we will try to keep building pieces around you to make this team better. If you do not, let us know, and then I guarantee they will try to either trade Melo before the deadline or come up with another solution. Because right now, this whole, literally, it seems like every year around this time, it's just there's something going on with Melo to where he's not living up to his contract, and it's turning into a bad situation, one that I'm pretty sure a lot of us are tired of talking about. So, Melo, get your stuff straight. Nick, do you care that the MLB is announcing its 2017 Hall of Fame class today?
I do care, because now this means that baseball fans get to talk about the one thing they don't like talking about and don't want to talk about. Steroids and Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire and guys like that. And even Jose Canseco's name somehow comes into the mix when this Hall of Fame announcement comes around. It's very interesting now, because there's a lot of players, and even more now, they're steroid users. They're being eligible for the Hall of Fame. So it creates this discussion of should these players get in. Every single year, baseball guys and really sports guys talk about should the Hall of Fame or should the steroid guys make it into the Hall of Fame. My personal opinion, I don't think they ever will. Not that I wouldn't vote for them, because I would vote based on what their statistics were before they took steroids. I don't think you should knock somebody for making a mistake for the rest of their life, Pete Rose. And so, but I think there's too many old writers that are not going to vote for them. And it takes 75% of the vote to get voted in to the Hall of Fame. I don't know how many writers there are. I think there's around 100 or something like that. So that would be obviously around 70 or 75 guys voting for you. I just don't think they're going to get in, especially with it takes 10, 15 years to be eligible. And then once those 10, 15 years go off, you're not eligible for the Hall of Fame anymore. Even though you might be the best guy to go in the Hall of Fame, once you pass that 10 or 15 years, you don't get to be in the Hall of Fame anymore. And I don't think those guys will ever be voted in, as I don't think 75% of the voters will vote those guys in. So it's too bad for them. You shouldn't have took steroids. But another real quick, more happy topic about the Hall of Fame. I personally hope that Vladimir Guerrero gets in. As an Angels fan and as a fan of really baseball in general, Vlad Guerrero changed the game. He was a difference maker. It's called the Hall of Fame for a reason. It's not called the Hall of Stats, because then maybe a guy like Vlad wouldn't get in. Hopefully Vlad gets in on the first ballot. I personally think he should get in. I also think Trevor Hoffman, being one of the save leaders in the MLB, should get in as well. But yeah, always interesting to talk about the Hall of Fame and steroids every year, and we'll see. Because by the time this podcast is posted, the Hall of Fame announcement will be done. So we'll see who got in, and it'll be interesting to see if any steroid guys got in, because it will more likely be a topic next week. Jared, last question. Do you care that the brand new Los Angeles Chargers have to play in the StubHub Center?
I do care, and let's think about it for a very quick second. The Chargers are going from playing in probably a 70 to 80,000 seat stadium in San Diego.
Beautiful, amazing Qualcomm Stadium with their amazing screens.
Just fantastic, right? To the StubHub Center, which, for those of you who do not know, is the home of the soccer team, the LA Galaxy, which holds around 30,000 seats. That is twice as less as the Qualcomm Stadium. I believe the stadium that holds the least amount of seats is in Indianapolis. I believe it's around 60,000. And then I also believe Oakland is around another small stadium as well. But 30,000 seats for an NFL game?
What's going on?
I think it's going to be very, very weird and awkward. I don't like that fact. I think having the huge, large crowds and the noise and the background and everything just only makes the game better and more interesting for the fan. So yes, I'm just kind of shocked by all of this. And then they came out with their new logo, which was the LA, pretty much the
Well,
Dodgers.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, pretty much the Dodgers logo, and it just completely went south. But on the other side of this break, we're going to continue talking about the new LA Chargers along with the LA Rams and pretty much everything going on in LA sports. So sit back, listen to these sound bites, and we will be right back.
I don't know. I think, at the end of the day, right, it comes down to money and probably ego. Those are the two things. I don't know this for sure, but just, me thinking out loud, those are things that I think about when it comes to someone trying to make a deal. Usually the reason why a deal doesn't happen in this case is money and ego.
You know what San Diego's new logo should be? This is what San Diego's helmet should have on it. Not a Dodger logo. It should have an old rich guy with a bimbo on his arm. That's what the Chargers' new logo should be, because that's what you're doing to San Diego. No respect to that community at all.
As the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams, it's humbling but excited to get going.
Folks, I am pumped. I am so proud to be the head coach of the LA Chargers. Oops.
Well, it's a new era in Los Angeles sports. The last 2 years has been incredible as far as football teams moving over. And now, after much deliberation and Dean Spanos not caring about the San Diego fans, the San Diego Chargers, as Anthony Lynn, their head coach, still likes to call them, are moving to Los Angeles. They are playing in the StubHub Center, as we mentioned, in Do You Care, and they will eventually move into City of Champions Stadium, the stadium that's being built in Inglewood for $2.6 billion. Jared, I know you're not a Chargers fan. Neither am I. We're not Joey Bosa fans as much either.
No.
But what were your first thoughts when you heard that San Diego, there had been rumors that they were going to move, but what were your first thoughts when it was announced that they were officially becoming the Los Angeles Chargers?
My first thought was, before this season, the LA market had 0 teams. And now, fast forward a year, the LA market
now
has...
They still have no teams.
Yes, they still have no teams. They do have 2. Nick was throwing a little jab there because obviously the Rams and Chargers
suck.
both
That's
had
why.
very, very bad years. But, yeah, just very interesting. And really, I think it came down to the money factor for the owner of the Chargers. He was not able to get that financial backing, not only from the NFL, but from other potential sponsorships to stay in San Diego. So in his mind, the only other option was to move to LA, potentially play in the StubHub Center for a few years, and then either join forces with the Rams in Inglewood, or I don't know if they're talking about building, the Chargers their own stadium. I'm really not sure. But this, I guess, buys him more time than staying in San Diego and Qualcomm. What I wanted to get into in the Do Your Care segment that I purposely saved for now was I feel that it's going to be very tough for the Chargers to be competitive for the next few years until they solidify exactly what they're doing for this key point. Few key points. Phillip Rivers is no young spring chicken. He's up there in age.
Nope.
He probably has a good 2 years left in him. After that, I think he will probably retire. Antonio Gates came out and said he's going to play 1 more year. Those are the 2 staples of this team.
Yeah.
They lost Eric Weddle last year. Didn't really find a great replacement. You have Melvin Gordon, who finally came on this year, but he got injured at the end of the year. You have Keenan Allen, who could be a number 1 receiver, but he can't seem to stay away from the injury bug.
He can't seem to not tear his ACL.
Yes, unfortunately. And as far as free agency goes, if I'm a free agent, I don't care if I'm a superstar or if I'm a depth guy, why would you want to go to San Diego knowing that in 2 years you're probably going to have to move? Or I'm sorry, yes, LA. I'm sorry. I'm still getting used to it. Yes, I did just do an Anthony Lynn, by the way, in his first press.
Yes, earlier.
Very, very awkward.
Yeah.
To say the least. But, if I'm a free agent, why would I want to go to L.A. to play for the Chargers, knowing that in 2 years you're probably going to have to move again, even if it's across town? So I think they're going to have a very, very tough time finding free agents and finding good free agents to come and help this team be successful. And the fact that this division that they are in, the AFC West, is very, very good. You have the Raiders, who made the playoffs this year. You have the Chiefs, who made the playoffs this year. Denver, who is still trying to find a quarterback. Their defense is still very much elite, and they're going to be very competitive. So for the Chargers, these next couple years, it's not looking too great. Nick, what do you think?
To be honest, I don't really care that the Chargers are coming to LA. I mean, they already were a Southern California team. They were always the team that I followed in the AFC, being a Cardinals fan, because they were just so close. It was easy to follow them and kind of root for them to be in the Super Bowl if the Cardinals weren't in it. But I just don't see the reason. I think it's just because it's all about money. Obviously, a smart move by Spanos. Spanos, like a lot of people don't know, could have financed the stadium with the amount of money he has, but it would have been not the best idea. So Chargers fans can get mad at him for that. And I saw some videos. They held a rally today. Today's Wednesday. They held a rally, and a couple fans were yelling and flipping off Dean Spanos about moving to San Diego. It seems like that the San Diego fans are taking it a lot harder that they're moving than the St. Louis fans felt about the LA Rams moving. I think that showed in the attendance in St. Louis, but so it does seem like these San Diego fans really did want to stay. Then you should have voted in the election to keep the stadium there. So no, it's very interesting. I think the Chargers are better than the Rams, so it should be interesting. It should be a little bit more enjoyable to watch them than it is the Rams. But no, I think you're right. They got a lot of old players. The really only young players that you mentioned were Gordon, and then they got Bosa, who ended up balling out this year after he held out for a super long time and hurt his thighs a bunch of times. So, the Chargers are starting brand new. They just hired Anthony Lynn, the offensive coordinator for the Bills. Now, the interesting thing about that is the system that Anthony Lynn ran in Buffalo was catered toward Tyrod Taylor, a running option offense. Now, I don't know the last time we checked. I don't think Phillip Rivers moves that very, very well.
No.
No, he doesn't.
No.
So it should be interesting to see how they use the offense and how Anthony Lynn maneuvers this offense here in Los Angeles now. But obviously they're hiring their coach. And like we said, he said San Diego, the first thing he said. So he still didn't even know where the hell he is. And the whole thing is weird. The StubHub Center thing is weird. Them moving to LA kind of out of nowhere is weird. But should be interesting. But I personally think the Rams will still have a better fan base in LA than the Chargers.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I could really care less that they're here, to be honest. I mean, they already were Southern California's team. It just gives the only good thing about it is it gives me one more chance for some seasons to see the Cardinals play in LA. So that's the only good thing. But moving on to the one more thing about that was that when they showed, you'll see the reaction LA is giving to the Chargers, and this is why I say I think the Rams will be more popular. The Clippers and Lakers played the other night, and they showed Dean Spanos, and I think there was some random tight end for the Chargers there too, and they booed the hell out of these guys. They booed the logo. The logo sucks, by the way. And so they booed these guys, and they actually didn't show Spanos on the Jumbotron at Staples Center because they didn't want the boos to get worse. So obviously fans kind of feel my thing, whether you don't care or you didn't want them to move from San Diego. Maybe not the best decision, but I feel like Spanos had to. He had to move. Moving on to an announcement that was made right after the Chargers moved to L.A., was the Rams hiring a new head coach, and his name is not Jeff Fisher. It is Sean McVay, and he's the youngest head coach in NFL history at 30 years old. I mean, this guy is younger than a lot of the players on the team. Personally, giving my opinion about it, I think it will be tough for initially the players to kind of respect the coach that young. With a lot of their better players, luckily a lot of their better players are young. Guys like Aaron Donald and T.J. McDonald and Mark Barron are younger than Sean McVay. But I just think it'd be interesting having a guy that young be your head coach with no experience of being a head coach. What do you think about Sean McVay, the hiring of Sean McVay?
Yeah, very, very interesting pick. Going away from the norm as far as the age factor. You are seeing more guys get opportunities, especially first-time head coaches. But the fact that he's 30, I believe next month he'll be 31, but still, by far the youngest head coach in the NFL. He does, however, have a lot of knowledge from what I have read about him. I mean, his grandfather was an executive for the San Francisco 49ers back in the 80s and the 90s, who ended up winning 5 Super Bowls. His father played. His father played for I believe he played for Indiana under Lee Corso. So he has a football upbringing. He's been around football since he was a young kid. He really got his start when he was 24 with the Washington Redskins as their tight end coach. And I believe their former tight end coach left to go take a head coaching job in the college ranks, and McVay was able to become the new tight ends coach. And from day one, he not only knew the offense but was really able to come in, get the respect of the players, and even though he was only 24 at the time, the doubts ended after day one. So, I think it's obviously going to be a very, very different for him, because now, just like many other, coordinators who've never been head coaches, you not only have to worry about your offense or the scheme that you would like to provide, but you also need to be in some of those defensive meeting rooms and special teams, and have the media meetings every week. There's so much that goes into being a head coach that I think sometimes these first year head coaches, not that they don't realize it, but sometimes it can just be a little too much for them. They did obviously hire Wade Phillips as their defensive coordinator. Fantastic hire on a few levels. One, the man knows how to coach defense. He may not be the best head coach, but he does know how to coach defense. He's been with the Broncos for the last few years, and obviously they won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And the fact that Wade Phillips, doesn't need to be babysat. Wade Phillips can completely take over the defense and do what he needs to do, which will free up McVay to spend more time with his offense. So, a lot of people are skeptical about this, and I'm not saying I'm not. But you know what? Let's give this kid a chance. Let's give this guy a chance, and let's see what he can do. The Rams have a lot of young talent, especially defensively. They need to really hit on some offensive pieces this offseason, whether it's through the draft or free agency. And let's see if he can help Jared Goff and kind of turn this offense around a little bit, get Todd Gurley back to what we all know Todd Gurley can be, and make this team relevant in LA again, because that's really what the NFL is hoping for. The NFL wanted to bring teams back to LA to help the NFL as a whole. So it's a different pick, but guess what? We're all talking about it right now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So any publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, no, I like both hires because at least the Rams didn't hire a Jeff Fisher-like guy, an older guy that kind of is just going to come in and weather the storm. They're hiring an innovative new coach. I'm glad you brought up the tight ends thing, because if you think about it, Jordan Reed from the Redskins was essentially created by Sean McVay. Obviously, the Rams aren't going to be looking to create tight ends. They got guys like Higbee and Kendricks who aren't going to be stars in the NFL. But it shows you that he's able to create something out of nothing. Because Jordan Reed was good at USC, but he wasn't what he is now in the NFL. He's a fringe Pro Bowler, and maybe even a Pro Bowler in some eyes. So he's going to be able to create. Obviously, I love the Wade Phillips hire. I think he's a great coach. Greg Williams decided he'd rather be with the Cleveland Browns, so he left, and now Wade Phillips is the new coach. So it should be interesting for the Rams. I think they'll definitely be better next year. You're right; they do need to shore up some things on offense, because their offense is horrendous. But I think good job by the Rams kind of putting off the Chargers stuff by hiring a head coach and hiring a defensive coordinator. And now I'm hearing they're going to hire Greg Olsen, a former, not the tight end for the Carolina Panthers, but a former offensive coordinator for the Bills as well, over to be, I believe it's the quarterback's coach, to help out Goff. So they're improving on the coaching aspect of their roster. They still need to improve on their roster part of their roster. But I like the hire for both coaches, and it should be interesting to see what LA football is like, because it almost was like we had an expansion team come here with the Rams, and it's almost like we're having an expansion team come here with the Chargers with these bad rosters. So should be interesting. My final thought, that's the end of the podcast. My final thought is I'm going to continue on the LA football theme. My final thought is that next year is really going to suck if you don't have DirecTV. Because, Jared, you know what this means?
Oh, boy.
This means that we're going to have to watch the Rams and Chargers every single week, and that both the Rams and the Chargers will be taking games away from us that we want to watch. And instead, we're going to have to watch mediocre Chargers and Rams football. So, I want to get your thoughts on that, but if that's not your final thought, then I'll let you go. But my final thought is I cannot wait to watch the Chargers and Rams suck it up on the field next year.
Yeah, usually at the end of our shows, we each have our own final thought. I'm going to piggyback off of that because I've been preaching about this since the beginning of the season. Every Sunday, I will text Nick at the beginning of the game, and I'll say, Nick, we actually get to watch, some real football.
Watch some good teams.
Or, damn, the Rams are on TV again. To me, listen, the NFL is all about ratings and money.
Yep.
So, in my opinion, I understand, you want to get the LA market. You want to build up the Rams. So you want to get that LA market behind their team. I understand that. Especially in the beginning of the season, everyone's hyped up. It's a new season. Anyone can win. You know what I mean? So I understand the first, 5, even 10 games of the season, you want to have the Rams and now the Chargers shown on TV as much as possible. Towards the end of the year, when, the playoff seedings become more clear and you really find out which teams are good and which ones aren't, that is when I feel like the games that are shown on TV, at least nationally broadcast, need to be good games. For instance, I believe it was either week 16 or week 15, I forget. And the Falcons went to LA and completely demolished them. It was like 44-6.
Oh man!
And they showed that entire game on TV. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, so there's no other game, no other better game on. Yeah. I think the NFL just needs to take a hard look at that. And listen, if next year, if the Chargers and the Rams are both sucking again, like most people think they will, they need to put better games on. Whether it's, who cares? I don't care if the Cowboys, whoever, is a good team and fighting for a playoff spot needs to be on the national broadcast, not the Chargers or the Rams just because we're in LA. And that goes for any market, not just the LA market.
Yeah.
If you're in Cleveland, obviously Cleveland hasn't been good for who knows how long.
TV. The Browns should never be on TV.
After week 10, week 11, when Cleveland's only got maybe one win on their docket, they shouldn't be on national TV, or they shouldn't be on Cleveland, on their TV sets anymore.
Don't make the fans suffer.
Come on, people. Come on, NFL.
Yeah, so our final thoughts were the same.
They were.
They need to, we don't want to watch the Rams and Chargers next year.
No.
And they're not going to make the playoffs. More than likely, these teams aren't going to make the playoffs from LA. So,
if any team is going to make the playoffs, I'm going to say it's going to be the Rams out of the two.
I agree.
Out of the two. But that's a long shot.
Yeah, it is a long shot. So that's the end of the podcast this week. Next week, we will be talking about the Steelers-Patriots game and the Falcons-Green Bay game, and we'll have a lot of good talks about that. We quite possibly could be talking about the Hall of Fame announcements for the MLB as well, and some basketball news as well. We'll see. Carmelo stays with the Knicks.
Oh, boy.
Amazingly. For Nick Neenan,
I'm Jared Smith.
This has been the Cover 2 Podcast.